Welcome back to the 5 à 7 podcast. I'm your host, Amie Watson. If you missed the first half of my happy hour chat with Experience Old Montreal co-owner and head of marketing Dimitri Antonopoulos, you might want to go back and listen to that first. In the second half, we talk more about restaurant and hotel locations, how to cook halibut, and the economics of restaurant and hospitality groups. Here's Dimitri. You've got your hotels operating, you've got your restaurants reopening. What percentage of your more than 1,500 employees are back at work now?
So I would say that normally this time of year, we're around 1,500, a bit more, so depending. So we're about half of that. We're about at 750 active staff.
Okay.
That being said, like I would say most of our full-time staff are back, the ones that are with us all year long. So like in summertime, we do hire a lot of people for the kitchens that open up and banquet staff. So, I mean, there's some departments that obviously we're not doing any banquets. The hotels are not all open yet. There are 3 of the 5 are open. The 2 other ones are like right now, William Gray, Nelligan, and Auberge are open. And Place d'Armes and Petit Hotel are opening the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
So there's still some hotel staff that are not working. The hotels are not very busy. So obviously a lot of housekeeping staff is not working. So, we still have quite a few people that are on furlough. And unfortunately, there's just not enough work. And even the people who are working, there are some that are still back on, part-time or like reduced hours.
Right. What are your expectations for the upcoming months then, I guess, for the rest of the year?
I mean, as good as some of the terraces are doing, the terraces, let's say, are doing like 50-60% of what we were doing last year. Some of the restaurants are doing like 20-25%. And if we consider the banquet numbers that are at 0 and the hotel, we're definitely not expecting anything close to last year. I would say that we'd still be lower than 30% of our average of our expected numbers, for this year. So it's really tough. At the end of the day, we're trying to make the best of it because we have no choice, and we have to try to reduce as much as possible. The losses for this year, but it'll definitely not be a good year.
Yeah. I feel like maybe as a restaurant group, you are better off than, say, a small chef-owned restaurant. Do you think that's true?
I mean, look, everybody has their own realities. I'm not saying, I find it hard for small businesses right now. I think it's going to be very difficult, especially if they can't open because of the size of their dining rooms. We are lucky that we're able to open, which is great, and we have large spaces in the terraces, which help.
Yeah.
That being said, we've had to really change our operational structure because the most of our restaurants, I think, out of the 16 outlets we have that are restaurants, I think 12 are in hotels. So with hotels running very slowly, we're not doing any breakfast, we're not doing any room service,
or being closed. Even then, even less.
Exactly. So basically, we've had to change our management structure a little bit, just temporarily reduce the number because at the end of the day, you have multiple layers of management because you have so many different outlets. But when they're not all working, you obviously don't need as much, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things is the fixed costs for hotels are very, very, very high. Municipal property taxes, for example, nothing's changing there. So I'm not saying we're in the same boat. I think everybody has their own realities, and I think ours are just a bit different. So so I think, but I gotta say we are lucky with our terraces this year. That's probably the biggest thing.
And do you think you're getting enough help from the government? You're talking about property taxes and things like that, and furlough for your employees. Is the government doing enough?
I think some of the stuff that they've done for in general. The CERB I think it's something that was pretty positive for most people.
Yeah.
And I think it helps with a lot of our employees because it's one industry that's very hit. And then I think that the rental assistance is actually very good for restaurants as well, as is the wage subsidy. But the wage subsidy is good for if you're operating, right? If you're not operating, it doesn't really help. So I think on the restaurant side, we're a little better. They did help, and I think the programs did help us. I hope it's doing the same for smaller businesses. I mean, one of the biggest costs, obviously you're not making money, but at least not to have to pay your,
Yeah.
your fixed fees. But, there are many, margins for restaurants are very small.
Yeah,
So
already. But I mean,
yeah,
yeah, you're missing out on your prime season, but
exactly.
and especially
Exactly.
because you're in the old port. So okay, so maybe you're a little bit better off than individual restaurants. But do you think you're worse off than other restaurant groups because you're solely in the old port where tourists would normally but aren't?
I don't think, actually, like during the quarantine it was tough because, like, there's not a lot of residents in old Montreal. There are a few, like there are like 3 to 5 thousand. I'm not sure exactly
Yeah.
how many now, but
But that's not
but
who
that
fills
being
your restaurants, really.
yeah, but that, I mean, at the end of the day, how much takeout are they going to buy, right? So
Yeah,
it's like, it's not.
exactly.
So I think I know some restaurants are like, we're doing numbers like for that were, that would almost match their normal revenues because of their takeout. But I
Wow.
think that was, I think that's a limited amount of places, right? Like, not that many places could pull that off. But I think now we're actually not in a bad spot because, like, a lot of people come to Old Montreal just to get away for walks, for, just to,
Yeah.
and it's quite busy. I mean, the weekends
Yeah,
are
I'm
actually very
surprised.
busy down there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, we are fortunate to be in Old Montreal. I mentioned earlier, like, Old Montreal has become like a destination for Montrealers. Like, it's like, I think a lot of people still say, okay, it's very touristy and everything, but, like, like, people come down. There's a lot of good restaurants, a lot of good cafes, and
Yeah.
and it's just a nice place to go walk. And so even though it is kind of touristy, you could kind of avoid all that and
Yeah.
just focus on the stores and on the the different restaurants and everything.
I always felt really lucky that we had that in Montreal because I think we have such a strong fine dining culture. Just to know that in the more touristy areas, there are great restaurants, there are reasons for non tourists to go there instead
Yeah,
of just putting up. A place like a cash cow kind of thing that'll suck
absolutely.
in tourists and they all want X, Y, or Z and just filling that need. But I think it's interesting that you can also still be on trend with what you do offer. And trends are an interesting thing to think about right now, and because normally in non-COVID times they're always being updated. There's always the next thing, like
Yeah.
natural wine bars. I mean, natural wine bars are huge in Montreal right now. So how do you think trends are going to be affected by this kind of delay or postponement on regular evolution of restaurants?
I mean, I think one of the big things we're going to see is a lot of people doing fun takeout and delivery. So I think that's exciting because, like, like, I mean, I've tried some delivery at home from, like, places like Provisions and stuff like that, and, like, it's fun to have, like, good, like, more like casual food but done, like, very well.
Mm.
So I mean, it's nice to see, like, that changing. I'm not sure if it's going to change a lot in the types of cuisine, and, like, I think, like, for example, sharing dishes are still around, and from what I've heard from people, it's like, if you're going to go eat with people, you're kind of bubbling with them, so you're still going to
Already.
end up,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna probably share already, if you have to. And other than that, I mean, I don't know if it'll affect long term, like, the spaces. Are people going to be looking for bigger, more spacier establishments? I mean, like, we one of the first things we did when we reopened is remove a large communal table at Keo, just because, like, I mean, it took a lot of space, and we're like, may as well just put, smaller tables to maximize the space. I'm not sure if people are going to feel comfortable, like, as much. I
Yeah.
have no idea. Like, it's very difficult to say.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the other trends, I mean, I think, chefs are continuing to create, and they're continuing to try new things, and I think things like this force everybody to kind of think out of the box and come up with new stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. Um, and so, actually, let's talk trends. Let's talk Nelly. Let's talk natural wine.
Sure.
You said you're excited about that. What got you into natural wine? What makes you excited about it?
I definitely think it's nice. I mean, I remember at the beginning, I didn't know much about it, and, like, the more I went out to restaurants that had it, I would try them. But, like, it's something that I'm like, I'm not that comfortable trying at home alone. Like, I mean, like, without, definitely the SAQ has some, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
And, they do have knowledge when they tell you what to try, but because they have a small selection, they can't really guide you too much, I think. So in restaurants that focus on that, they give you a nice variety, and you could pick something that kind of suits what you're looking for a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's fun because it's something different, right? It doesn't taste exactly like what you're used to. And I do really like the idea of it, not having any preservatives, and like, I've actually seen a difference having a couple of glasses at lunch and not feeling bogged down afterward,
Okay. So how did you come up with the menu there for the wine?
We actually worked with a sommelier that's been with our group for a while. He used to be at Maggie Oaks,
Who is that?
and his name is Adrien De Philip. I'm mispronouncing his last name, but
We give him a shout
so
out for
yeah,
that.
absolutely. And he's great. We actually started doing a wine club at Maggie Oaks for the last year before.
Right. Yes, and I never got to go. I was so
Yeah.
disappointed.
And Adrien was giving the courses. So like, yeah, I mean, I really like his selections, and he actually moved to Versus, maybe like at the beginning, maybe at the end of last year, I would say, maybe a bit before that. And when we started talking about the cafe, and then what we wanted to do at night, I was like, definitely, like, this is like a perfect place for a wine bar. And since we already have a nice selection of regular wines. At Versus and at Michambeuf, we're like, it would be an opportunity to let us change the selection regularly, and to really showcase something different.
Yeah, I like that you have very affordable by the glass options and not just two, for example. Or you're that was intentional, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. The idea was definitely we want to get people to try it out, and we are offering smaller glasses and regular, like smaller portions, and yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you have three prices listed, like for the
Yeah.
Voria Frizzante Bianco, the Sicilian sparkling wine, you have 8, 13, 65. So 8 is what size?
It's at 2.5 or 3 ounces.
Okay. So the full glass is 13.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the bottle 65.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay.
But we did opt for, like, to find something a bit more affordable. We wanted to get people to come in and try it out. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I was shocked. $8 for a full glass. Now it makes a little more sense. Now it is
very hard to find that cheap.
Yeah. Well, I was like, just in terms of quality, like no one's selling that. You can't make a profit at that. Yeah. So I understand. Okay, so. What are the secrets then to getting through this crisis in good financial shape?
I mean, look, obviously, we are trying to maximize our revenues, like anywhere we could. Like, it's not like we can't do much more than what we were normally doing, but basically, we have added a terrace to 701, for example. We are trying to expand our terrace at Modevi, all within the limits of the city, what the city allows.
Right.
But then, it's like, like I said earlier, the restaurants are so difficult as far as costs and margins, that it's just especially important this year to really, really watch where you're spending, and make sure that whatever the revenues you are making are profitable ones, and they're not, you're not spending too much money, no unnecessary expenses. We've reduced our marketing budget tremendously. We're just trying as much as possible to save, because it's going to be a big hit this year, definitely. Like, I think for most restaurants, a lot of our savings are going to be gone this year.
Well, I feel like you're fortunate in that you're in this with your family, at least.
Absolutely.
You have people you can depend on who've been doing this for a very long time, who know what they're doing. So maybe just because we didn't finish the lightning round, we can end this conversation with the last couple questions, which are kind of fun. I think they're kind of fun. I wrote them, obviously I'm completely biased about them, but...
they're nice. That's great.
Okay, good. Thanks. What was your favorite dish as a kid?
So my mom makes a dish called Youvetsi, which is it's a Greek, I guess it's like a casserole with orzo, like a very light tomato, and it's usually with... it's cooked with the juices of the meat. So it's basically either, I like it with lamb or a goat. And sometimes you can mix it with veal as well. You can make it with beef as well, but it's definitely my favorite dish. And like, she would always when I moved out, she would always try to like woo me back by making it for me, you know.
Okay, so it's mostly the oil and the pasta and like the meat juices all mixed together.
Basically, you use the meat juices to cook the orzo, and it's just a very it's not like a risotto, but like it's almost like a tomatoey risotto a little bit,
Okay,
like
so you get like a little bit
yeah.
of that creaminess, a little
Yeah,
bit
so
of,
it's a little creamy because of the orzo, and yeah,
yeah,
it's
and
very
the
very nice.
richness
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
juices. Okay, okay, that sounds great. What was it
And it's
called
usually
again?
cooked.
Oh,
It's called Youvetsi.
Youvetsi, and it's
Yeah,
usually cooked.
it's usually cooked as a one pot meal kind of thing, but like I mean, it depends how you like. I've tried once, and I did it separately because I'm an amateur. So
Did it work though? Was
yeah,
it
it
delicious?
did. Yeah,
Not
yeah,
as
yeah,
delicious
absolutely.
as your mom's, I'm sure.
It's never going to be as good as my mom's. Though.
Of course. What was the first dish you learned to make at home?
Funny enough, I didn't. I learned how to cook at the restaurant. Like I mean, not too advanced, but like I started working as a busboy when I was 12, and then I like the next summer I did kitchen prep, and so I did a lot of early on. It was a lot of peeling carrots and wrapping potatoes, and but then I started helping with making dressing and soup, and then I would be in charge of making the Black Forest cakes.
Ooh,
So, big production, and I've tried it out again a couple of times recently, a little bit more fancy, but yeah. So
that's a lot of
it's
steps. How do you
yeah.
what are the major sections of a Black Forest cake production?
I guess you're I mean I still use the recipe when I do it, but you make your sponge and the whipped cream and your jam, and you have to make sure your sponge is well. You wet it with kirsch and
Mm.
syrup, and then after that, like I like kind of like the new naked effect there, with no cream on the side. I like seeing the layers,
Yeah.
and just like I mean, it's not that complicated. It's actually pretty straightforward, but you have to be pretty good with cutting the slices of the sponge so you could create
Right.
the different levels.
Is that on the menu anywhere still, or is that nowhere to be
I don't
found?
think so actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what though? It's really really good cake. I find it's like it's an old classic, and I think back then it was a bruschettery, so it was a what you would see with all the little the little chocolate the little sparkles there, the chocolate sparkles around.
Mm.
So I feel like we could do a much better job nowadays with it.
With plating, perhaps. That sounds amazing. That sounds really, really good. What's your most impressive dish to make?
My most impressive dish. Oh, I think it's moussaaka actually.
Okay, so you do
So
all the layers.
yeah,
That's
but I only use eggplant. No zucchini, no potato. So
okay.
yeah.
Lamb or vegetarian?
I make it with not lamb. I make it with regular beef,
Okay,
ground beef. Yeah.
ground beef. Okay.
I've made it. I haven't made it vegetarian to be honest. No, I should though. My wife has become more of a pescatarian, so I should try to to try to make that like that.
Well, you could probably do Beyond Meat if you really wanted to give it a go.
Yeah, I have. I'm
Like,
not
no.
convinced. I think I gotta try different ones. I think the one I've tried so far, I'm not 100%. I don't know. Do you like it?
I like it in theory because of the reduction of carbon.
So do I.
And the
So do I.
taste is acceptable, but I would take, like a really low carbon footprint, well raised piece of meat, like a regenerative farming piece of meat, very,
Yeah.
very occasionally, rather than having that all the time, for example.
Okay, I
But
agree.
that's my choice.
I
Um,
agree.
but
I think with vegetarian, I prefer using like substitutes rather than imitations. So I like mushrooms and stuff like that.
yeah,
So,
yeah, lentils, beans. I love
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
chickpeas for making really creamy things. Um, Bechamel for your
yeah,
moussaka.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you did the classic one. Just had to make sure.
Yeah.
And we talked about the best deals happening for Happening Gourmand. What
Yeah.
you think are the best deals? But what are you going to be eating in the next couple weeks?
Well, I mean, I pretty much eat at least one meal there every day because I have lunch, sometimes dinner. But I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the items that we're trying to showcase items, sorry, that we already have on the menu. Some of the items are new, but most of them are existing because we want people to come back to them.
Yeah.
So it's stuff that I mean I would eat anyway, but yeah, I mean like I said, so maybe the pasta at Jacopo, something I missed during the quarantine, I gotta say.
Yeah.
And I guess I haven't had much steak since the quarantine. I think I cooked steak once on the barbecue, so maybe a good steak. We'll see.
Yeah, so many delicious things to get back to. Well, thank you so much for whetting all of our appetites, and I hope everything goes as well as it can with all your restaurants. Good luck with Happening Gourmand, and with Nelly, of course. I hope to.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the 5 Cassettes podcast. If you missed the first 13 episodes of the podcast, you can subscribe to the audio version on Google Podcasts, follow it on Spotify, and find it on Stitcher. You can find the video versions on Apple Podcasts and YouTube, and you can stream any episode on my blog, multiculturosity.com, which you can also like on Facebook to get tons of recipes and, in better times, restaurant reviews. Follow me on Instagram at Miss Watson. That's Miss Watson with 2 T's. And for links to everywhere that Dimitri and I mentioned, plus the $25, $29, and $35 table d'hôte dinner menus and $17 brunch menus that are part of Happening Gourmand, you can find them in the show notes wherever you got this podcast. Until next week, sip something delicious wherever you are.